All right, you guys, welcome to the Elevated Frequency Podcast. My name is Shannon Morse, and I am the co founder of The Green Door Life. And I am here with a very special guest, Ed Howey, who is one of our clients who started. When did you start? Maybe over a year ago?
It was late October that I met with you to learn
Uh-huh.
about the program, and then I think I started officially the first week of November.
Okay. Okay. So we're not quite to your year mark, which is really cool. I always like to think that when we have a year under our belt, our cells, like so many of our cells, regenerate over the course of a year. So whatever information we're putting into our body in the year's time will basically manifest in our body. And so I'm really excited that your manifestation in your physical body is not even at a year yet. So that's quite exciting. Okay. So before you started with us, can you share a little bit about what your understanding was and your relationship to just fitness and health and nutrition and all these things?
Yeah, well, I guess in hindsight, my understanding compared to now was little, not very good. At the time, I had done I guess prior to coming to the Green Door Life, I'd done a similar 12-week program with a coach who I met with once a month. It wasn't very hands-on. It was very cut dry, app guided, and diet and fitness, and it worked to an extent, but it wasn't educational, or
Mm.
yeah, it wasn't educational at all, compared to what I learned, with the Green Door Life, but it was mostly just helping me get into a habit of a routine, basically, or
Mm.
get into a routine. But it was a quick plateau to reach, basically. I lost, I don't know, 8, 9 pounds and then stopped. There wasn't a lot of guidance in the fitness world. It was follow these workouts. And I think the biggest difference that I learned, between there and here with exercise was get out of I'm in my basement kind of exercise area, but like get out of here, because I couldn't focus on whatever I was doing. I was very distracted with what was around, or I was like, I want to be done with this. 30,
Mhm.
35 minutes. I was just getting kind of bored. So the I think the first thing I learned in my first call with my coach was get a gym membership, and I was
Mm.
almost resistant to it. I was like, do I need to? Should I just
Uh-huh.
buy the weights? Like, I don't wanna, go into public." He's like, "Go. You just get out of your normal space and go be somewhere else. It's good for your
Mm.
head." And I'm excited to go to the gym now. I'm going later today. Our community has a really good rec center with a brand new weight facility on the second floor, and I see a lot of friends and neighbors there, so it's also a little bit fun just to see people I know. But it is so much easier to focus and do what Trainer Eyes is saying when I'm out of just sort of the confines of my life.
Yes.
And it's just been, a great place to channel the energy because I
Mm.
just couldn't stay motivated with the program
Mhm.
that I was doing. Nutritionally, I no, I could, assume I'm eating healthy, right? I eat vegetables
Yeah.
consistently, so, like, I knew that, but I was on something called, like, a carb cycling
Uh-huh.
diet that it was really difficult to track. So, I was happy about I learned a chronometer with them.
Mhm.
I learned how to track, but just not to the extent that I have
Yeah.
with the Green Door Life. So I was used to it, tracking water, tracking food, but I mean, having a high carb day versus a low carb day and keeping up with it, and then all of the other things that come with it, like what do you do when you travel, keeping consistent, holidays, I wasn't prepared at all.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I could tell you that's going to be maybe a more lean protein than this, but I would say surface of the surface level was my understanding.
Yeah. Well, it's so great that you had the background of daily structure, using apps and thinking about things in that way, and just thinking about things in terms of tracking. I think that's really helpful when people come in, because sometimes it can be a bit jarring because it's this task that you're not used to doing. And it can be so, so useful when it's applied in a way that is educational and exploratory and like you're going, "Oh, wow, I didn't even realize this food had that in it. How cool." And you get to learn as you go. I love that. So your coach was Nate. I love that he put his foot down for you, especially if your gym and your workspace is in the same room.
Yeah.
Yeah, a very challenging shift for your mind to make, to be able to go, "This is where I do this thing. This is also where I do this thing." I likely do, like, 10 other things in the same space.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I when we have friends over, like, there's a dartboard right there, and sometimes we just socially play darts, and so it this and I have a guitar set up, so this room does a lot.
Yeah,
You may see a dog
shadow of a
outlined
dog.
right here, and, like, we do physical therapy with him in this space too, so, like, we're here a
Yeah.
lot, and on the, Metcon days and the hit days, kind of off of weight training days is this is where I am,
Mhm.
and I feel very much more motivated on those days, but it's still hard in here just
Uh-huh.
to wanna do that, and not be looking at the clock or be wondering, like, how many more, how many
Yeah.
more sets do I have? So
Yeah.
I've gotten better at it, but I think that was the biggest sort of kickstart to shift in the mindset was like, get
Mhm.
out, and
Mhm.
this is a whole new experience. You might as well just make all of it brand new.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, what I love about that is that when we have novelty for the brain, it actually has to, like, it can't copy and paste from what we do in familiar circumstances. It actually has to look for new pathways. And so I remember in COVID where, no one was, well, at least in California, no one was going outside and like going to an office or anything like that. And we had a house that we were renting, and I had to teach meditation in one room, teach strength training in another room, have client calls in another room. I would choose like different corners of the house so that I was not trying to be the same person and facilitating the same thing in the same seat because it was so muddy for my brain.
Yeah,
So I love that you're doing that and you're noticing, where it's supportive and where you're still like, and I'm still looking at reps, like, what are we done with this when you're in the environment that's like so familiar? It's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. And not to. I'm sure you have a structure for this conversation, but not to get out of it
Yeah.
so much. But like in the program itself, the awareness week was wild, and I
Mhm.
still think about it a lot because that's one of the things. Like I get to that point where I'm like, I don't want to do this. Like I have other things to do. I'm home, my work day is over, and then I start to think about why am I thinking like that? And it's pretty much rooted in that. Like I need to change the environment. So I think it's helped to where I am now. So it's not so difficult for me now just to be doing these things 2 days a week from home. But on occasion, I'll go in and do one of those Saturday workouts, so those extra ones that are in there, and it's just maybe I'm planning for like a restaurant meal later, so I wanted to
Yeah, yeah,
burn a few extra calories or something, but it's not as much of a challenge for me anymore to
yeah.
to be okay in this space.
Awesome. I love that. I love that there's been this evolution of like bringing awareness, like being aware that, hey, this may not be the best space to do absolutely everything, and also knowing that from what I'm hearing you say that there's a belief that you're now aware of to be like, well, why do I think that way?
Mhm.
Instead of it being like the one and only thing, but just getting curious about it. And I mean, we don't have a script for this, so we just get to go wherever the wind takes us. But for the individuals who are listening who don't know the structure and kind of how Awaken Your Nutrition, the program that Ed and so many of our clients are in, it's a 12-week journey initially, and the journey is essentially, I like to say that it's designed in three stories of a house. The first story is education. It's like this week to week education, and the first 6 weeks is all about nutrition and exercise science. And then we move into awareness and belief patterns in the second part of the program. And the reason for that, and you're speaking to that as well, is that we realized that we could give people all of the science and all of like, this is what protein is, and, this is what you should do at the gym. But if we're still unconsciously embodying old beliefs and behavior patterns, we won't be able to realize a different experience within ourselves because we're still unconsciously copying and pasting everything from our life prior. And that's actually where I feel like the mass opportunity is for individuals who really take that part to heart, because, anyone can do something in a vacuum. But when life happens, when travel and events and, family emergencies and all of these things, we need to know how to pivot, and that requires awareness. Um,
Definitely.
yeah. So, and then from what you're sharing, again, to clarify for people who don't know, the Metcon, the HIIT, the strength training, like this is all part of our 12-week progressive strength training that's included in our Awaken Your Nutrition program. So, when individuals come to us, they don't have to do our workouts, but they are very effective. And just by looking at your physique and some of the other male clients that I've had, for guys, they are very successful with this workout. I love watching male bodies transform with this because it's not the usual split training, like upper lower split, for example. So, okay, bouncing around, but I wanted to give people some context. As you started to just work with Nate, because Nate and I used to be roommates. Nate's one of my very favorite humans. Such a good dude, and I think actually you may be one of his last long term clients because now he's transitioning into his other career. But when you started working with him, what was your experience just moving into, if you can remember, moving into like, okay, this is an interesting way. I'm learning new things, and my body's responding in different ways. And like, what was just the overall experience that you were having?
It was very new, but it was very rooted in support.
Mm.
So it didn't take long. I mean, not long at all. When I met you and having spoke with my friend Mark, who worked with you previously, I had the belief that okay, they know what they're doing. I've done that before. I worked with a coach, but you when you don't see the progress that you want, you always question things, right? I'm the consumer
Mhm.
here. So
Totally.
I'm listening to you and I'm hearing what you have to say. And I trusted and I went in and right off the bat, Nate had my attention and made me believe because it was a different approach. Because the diet and the exercise is the bulk of it, but right in week one, after I think I filled out a questionnaire, it was okay. In addition to teaching you how to learn your nutrition, and we're gonna track your macronutrients day by day.
Mhm,
You're going to do these exercises. It was don't go too hard on these exercises. Leave some
mm,
in the tank. It's okay if you don't finish, or it's
mhm,
okay if you don't lift as much as you could. So aside from get out of your house and go to a gym, it was don't overdo it. And then on top of it, there was just sort of this I wasn't expecting the challenge for the mind and the brain.
mm,
So sort of some of the I think he was preparing me for some of what I'll say is emotional changes that come with the dieting, the changes in hormones, and then how else can we improve? And one of the
mm,
things we focused on was just like essentially like a digital detox, and a big theme was being okay with being bored at
uh-huh,
times, right? So we focused a lot on like let's put the phone down.
uh-huh,
And so one of the things I started to track over time was iPhone gives you that weekly screen time report. You're averaging this many hours a day, and it's pretty much like whatever exercises I'm doing because the screen doesn't go to sleep, or like when
yeah,
I'm meal prepping, like that's a majority of my screen time now is like programming my
mm,
meals out in the week or just the screen being on. So there was more in hindsight, it was very much creating more than just a plan for my body, my nutrition, and
mhm,
my physique. It was
mm,
the brain too, the brain and the
yes,
mind, body and
yes,
soul, everything. It was
yeah,
very holistic. And so it was kind of a lot of information at first, and then I think I took a little while to respond to it. So even though I had done a lot of food tracking before, it was the hacks that Nate shared with me are what started to help me figure things out. Because when you look at like a limit, you put a limit on protein or carbohydrates or fat, because that's where it started going. Once I moved into a deficit, I was like, what do I
mhm,
do? Like I
mhm,
don't I don't know how to do this. And so right off the bat, it was switched to these 4 meals, and I got tired of food. I was eating more than I was used to, but I was eating better.
uh-huh,
And then as time went on, I became hungry,
mhm,
and then Nate starts talking to me about how do you feel?
mhm,
And just the lessons that kind of went alongside it were it started to get into focus really quickly, how
mhm,
how intentional the structure was. So and I just didn't expect that at all. Compared to my last experience, I just see this guy once a month and he'd say, "Oh, I'll switch this out. You don't like this exercise? Cool." in 30 minutes. I mean, I saw Nate, we regularly ran over on our calls by
Mhm.
about half hour, so I saw him more frequently than, I think he was expecting, but it kind of felt like a crutch toward the end, and so I got
Mhm.
very into that routine over the 12 weeks, and then I got very nervous at the end of the 12
Mhm.
weeks because 'cause I'm like, "What do
Mhm.
I do without him?" And he gave me so much information throughout the 12 weeks, but then at the end that I felt, I was put on a trajectory, but all this time was, preparing the shuttle for launch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not even the launch.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that I was launched in the 12 weeks. I would say all systems were being checked and re-examined and modified. I talk in analogies all the time, so
I love
sorry,
it. That's no, it's so great. It's visual.
but yeah, but it was more than I bargained for, I think, in terms of
Mm.
just how much I was learning, how much support I had, and just the resources that come with the Awaken Nutrition Your Nutrition program just surprised me.
Mm. Mhm. Yeah, I so appreciate that, and what I'm hearing as you share that is almost the evolution. You explained it really beautifully. It's really cool to hear it through your lens, and I also really appreciate how Nate was curating the experience to likely what he was seeing that you needed, right? Like the screen time, the mind, like those sorts of things, the belief patterns, helping you to understand what will happen with hormones as things start to shift. And I think that that's what's beautiful about having a coach who has walked the path so many times themselves, because they can be 10 feet down the path and look around and be like, okay, so it's going to feel like this when you get here. And to have that, it also makes sense why when you get to 12 weeks, you're like, "Wait, nobody's 10 steps down the path from me anymore.
Yeah,
The hell am I gonna do with that?" Which is generally why we, like, create the, drip feed of, like, you can do à la carte calls, like, you can stay in the workouts. There's these little ways that you can stay and take the boosters off of your rocket ship one thing
love
at a
it.
time. Yeah, so that you're like, "Okay, okay, I got it, I got it." Yeah, because the whole point is, like, the true reason why I designed the program the way it is because I wanted people to leave having the information for themselves so that they could actually go, "Okay, I may not know what it looks like, but I do know why I would adjust certain things based on how I wanna feel, how I wanna look, what's happening in my life." And of course, we can't go through every season with a client, but this is one of the reasons why some clients come back to us 2, even 3 times for 12 weeks because they're in a different season and they haven't navigated that season yet.
Yeah.
And so it happens a lot with women who are like pre and post pregnancy or around surgeries or, you know, things that happen in health and that sort of thing. So it's so cool. Yeah, I just really like hearing how you're describing it. It's cool to see it from your lens. And then, okay, so after the 12 weeks, then what?
After the 12 weeks, so, I was like I said, I was nervous, and I'm like, "What am I gonna do?" And I got all the options, like the à la carte calls, but Nate gave me this big paragraph, and he's like, "Just stick to this." So I was in a caloric deficit, and I was continuing to descend based on a goal. I had a goal of reach 185 pounds, then, a flatter stomach, and then I continued to go with it, but you need the experience too
Mhm.
to just kind of understand, and I'm very much a hands-on learner, so doing it allows me to have the experience click in my mind.
Yeah.
And so where I was really nervous to kind of lose the weekly support, and it was just a shift in my routine, just like it was to start the program, I started to notice, I have a little more time because
Mhm.
I was under a little bit of a time crunch to be home for my calls with Nate once a week after leaving the gym or go to the gym later. But I had started probably the worst time of the year
Mm.
to go into like a diet.
Mm.
And start of November, like what's happening later that month? Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And then Christmas and then New Year's. Because I think of New Year's as this Christmas leftovers, and it's just desserts, right? It's
Yeah.
rich, decadent foods and desserts. And part of what Nate prepared me for was the outside
Mm.
saying, well, I mean, it's just, it's Thanksgiving, so you should have this, right?
Mhm.
Your grandma's yams or, this specific pie. And then he was like, yeah, but you could say that about anything. It's a convivial Tuesday in April, like, you should come out with us. So it was
Mm,
he set me up to be able to look at maybe pros and cons or consequences of, like, going outside of my macros for the day. And
mm,
so after the 12 weeks, it felt like montage go. And
mhm.
when I look back at it, like, winter was a blur. It
Uh-huh.
was I was in this routine, and I kinda like that for myself because where I live in Illinois, like, it's bleak. Like, I mean, we had, -12-degree days, or just the only time we'd see the sun was after a snowstorm, and so,
Wow.
like, it's pretty, but, like, I'm not
Mhm,
in the sun enjoying it, so it was a great time to go and focus, but, I go back and I look at the progress photos of when I was kind of done with the 12 weeks, and I'm like, "I'm not seeing it as much." It wasn't as rapid, and I think somewhere around week 18 after I started, clothes started to fit that hadn't ever fit.
mm,
I remember the specific pair of pants I bought in 2021 or 2 that I had to wear a belt because I couldn't button. Like, the belt was just holding them up for me, and so I
uh-huh.
I pulled them out of the drawer and I put them on, and, like, there was a little bit of room there. And one of the kind of reasons that I needed to make a shift in my, like, lifestyle was I kept buying clothes because I was, like, kept getting bigger, and so,
Mhm,
it was really great to hit that point, and while I wasn't seeing a ton of, like, muscle definition, things were fitting. The scale
mhm,
was moving very slowly during the 12 weeks and then after, and then suddenly it all just fell into place. I got really tuned in with the meal prepping,
mm,
really tuned in with, "Okay, what am I gonna do if we are gonna go out to eat?" And then figured out, okay, maybe once every 2 weeks or 3 or 4 weeks, we can go to a restaurant and do this, and I'm preparing for it in that day, or I'm
mhm.
just not gonna worry about it because I didn't wanna hurt myself in that way too, that, like,
Yeah.
get myself into a mental trap, and I started to see, the bigger effects taking hold that, yeah, I went over on calories, but the scale didn't show it,
Uh-huh. Right, right.
which was so encouraging to me
Yeah.
because I look, the deficit's temporary, and I continue to thank my wife for her support in that, I was prepared to cook 2 meals a night because I was
Mm,
going in a little more strict direction, and she just followed. So we're not eating the same portions, but, we're not eating what we used to. It was a lot of
yeah.
boxed, noodles or rice or something, and just, like, really fatty options, and so when you start to pick the portions apart based on the macros, the options started to shift, and then it became much clearer how I needed to eat, and she went
Mm,
right along with it, which was
wow.
really helpful. And so, yeah, after the 12 weeks, just sort of setting into the groove, I started to feel more okay without having the weekly support, and I signed on for the 12 months of workouts, and it was just I think that was the mainstay that I needed,
Mm,
the workouts, and then just continuing with the trends on chronometer and just keeping up the practice
mhm.
of it to where now it still kind of makes me nervous to think like, what am I going to do? Because every now I'm trying to go back up in calories, and I go and adjust the macronutrient values, and I'm like, oh my god, like my whole meal prep situation is going to change. I need to pay extra attention to this, and then that changes the shopping, but it's fine. I've
Yeah.
learned several things in the process. Potatoes, really helpful because I
Yeah.
be so hungry, but I can eat a lot of potatoes compared to rice.
Huh?
So you
Huh?
start to learn things like that where you can eat more. It also just kind of blows your mind that, like, yeah, this many potatoes doesn't really provide a lot of nutrition, but with everything else, I'm balanced.
Yes. Yeah.
And so
Totally.
I'd say like the trajectory still is pointing up after the 12 weeks was over, but the progress got steeper. I think
Mhm,
everything started to change, and after my clothes started fitting, my confidence started changing.
mhm.
I really didn't like my reflection in the mirror at the time that I started, and then I started that and started enjoying, my appearance again to the point where sometimes when I would go over calories and just be like, "Whatever, like, I'm doing this. I
Yeah.
can't avoid it because it happens. You're a human."
It's life, yeah.
I'm reminded when I see myself in the mirror, like, "Oh, it's fine." Right? I can
Right.
always refocus and redial in tomorrow, but I got in this mode of like, I'm gonna lose all the progress. Like, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
put 30 pounds on sitting at this meal,
Right.
even
Yes,
though you may
exactly.
feel like it because you're really full. But I continue to surprise myself as many weeks past completing the program as I'm at, just because where I came from. And
Yeah.
so I was not happy. And then the whole 12 weeks was the beginning of the montage, and then the montage was the winter. And then
Uh-huh.
suddenly, like, oh my gosh, somebody asked me for a progress photo, I think in like March, and they were like, "Dude, what did you do?" And I'm like, "I don't." And that's when I started to see it, because the
Uh-huh.
slow progress for yourself, because Nate would say you take the zig with the zag when you look at your weight map,
Yep.
and he was so good at predicting it. It's like he had my number coming into
Uh,
it.
yep.
Uh, we'd be looking at my measurements and my weights, and he'd go, "Yeah, about 2 more days, you're gonna see like a 2-pound drop." And he was right every single
Uh-huh.
time.
Uh-huh.
And so without that, I was starting to think like, "Am I gonna be successful?" But I
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
And that's the experience that I needed to keep going and see how much higher I can take this, because I am eating more. I have my
Mhm.
map set out in front of me, but I enjoy it now.
Yeah.
I enjoy every part about it. So it's been great
That's a
after completing.
yeah, I love so many things about it, and I think it's really interesting the part that you're talking about where you arrive at this because you're in your body every day. So, for us to see difference in our progress photos from day to day or week to week or even month to month sometimes from being inside of the body that's having the progress, it can be a little challenging, which is why it's so helpful when a coach is able to reflect back. "Oh, this is what we're seeing. Like, let me point out the differences, and when our physical form is changing, and this is just a part of what I see with all of our clients, what I see in my own experience in my own body is that it's the way that we look is a byproduct of our actions. So when we have a goal with our body, whatever our body is doing right now, it's a direct representation of the actions that we've taken. Whether that's food or sleep or movement or sunlight, like all the things. And so when we finally get to a place where we're taking new action, it's almost like the ego has a little bit of like a delay for
Definitely.
recognizing itself in the mirror and going, wait a second, what? And there's that delay, which I think is so cool that you're noticing that because it is a real thing. Like I've had so many clients where they get to a certain place and they're like, "Well, but I still feel like I might have more to lose." And I'm like, "You don't, actually." Like,
Yeah.
this is when we move backwards and we start increasing your calories and allowing your muscles to fill and giving you more definition and more health and more volume in your tissue. And the weight thing, isn't the weight thing super interesting how it just goes up and down and up and down? But you have your high set weight and then you have your low set weight.
Right.
And to me right now, when I see daily weight, it looks like the signature looks like a fingerprint for people.
Yeah.
And it's so fascinating. And so I'm so glad that you weigh daily. Like I really encourage people to weigh daily because once you can do that, you can start to see your own body's trend. And so then once he's predicted it, then you're like, that did happen. Oh my gosh, that's crazy." And then you keep doing it with yourself and you're like, "I had that meal, didn't gain any weight. That's crazy." And then you keep doing it and keep, building these little moments of internal trust that what you're doing now is actually supportive.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I just went to Florida for a wedding last Thursday. I came home Monday, and I tried really hard to like let go while not letting go. So, Airbnb is great. You get to have a kitchen, you shop. And so I
Yeah.
had a little bit of control over what I was eating, mainly breakfast. So I didn't have the
Mhm.
scale, but like I love one of the lessons on how to eyeball the food,
Yeah.
either based on, your hand, or you just get used to it too. You know how
Yeah.
many cherries, or, how much of this, how much of that. And so, if you go over a little bit, it's not
Yeah.
the end of the world. But that was pretty much the only meal that I had the ability to affect, like, what I was what I was eating and stay on track. But I also wanted to celebrate a little bit. I'm at a wedding and I had my head down for several months doing this. And so I just I didn't really abide after that.
Yeah.
And I got home anticipating a higher number on the scale than I saw. I think I went up 2 pounds
Yeah.
after all of it, which blew my mind. And I know I'm holding water because I was at a wedding. I was drinking alcohol, but I'm not way up like I thought I would be, or like
Right.
I was earlier in the program. So I feel like a reprogramming took place
Yes.
throughout this whole process that just gives me a lot of hope.
Yes.
And that's really like the big takeaway of working with the Green Door Life is this long-term, long view. I'm set up to
Mhm.
succeed, but if I need something, I can always come back and talk
Mhm.
with the community and talk with the professionals, because things happen.
Sure.
Injuries. I read something you had a hamstring issue recently,
Mhm.
and I had an elbow issue pop up in March. I was moving, like, logs around my backyard. I cut down some trees. I was just cleaning up the space a little bit, and then I had a tattoo appointment the next day. So as I'm laying on the table and, like, my elbow's really sore, it's like a golf tennis elbow, I'm not really sure what it
Yeah.
is, but it's like a tendon thing. Bending my arm isn't really great in the healing
Mhm.
process, and
Mhm.
then they put this bandage on the tattoo, and they're like, "Don't sweat. Like, if you work out, like, don't work out while this bandage is on." So I my head went crazy that week. I wasn't, replacing hormones with exercise. I wasn't just channeling any energy that I did have. I was getting
Mm.
anxious. So I
Yeah.
get back to the gym and like my elbow is just not letting me do things.
Mm.
So I switched up a lot of exercises to try to focus on like legs and core and
Uh-huh.
just totally overdid it. And so now I'm
Ah.
looking at like how do I like I couldn't walk really for a couple days. My hamstrings were tight, my glutes were tight, and I was just lost again. And so I'm like, go lighter. You
Mm.
prepared for this. Don't
Mhm.
overdo it. And so for several weeks, I just sort of changed out some exercises and kind of focus on some different areas because the app makes it really easy to do that.
Yes,
Um,
totally.
but also I needed to just not really use this arm. And
Uh-huh. I
so
know.
it's still a little sore now, but I'm back on basically what's in the programming each week and
Mhm.
I'm good, but like you get those curveballs. All
Totally. It's what it means I mean, where we have a body, so that's gonna
Mhm.
break down.
Yeah,
You gotta figure out how to use other things while it's in repair mode.
right.
Yeah, and actually, I don't think it was me that had the hamstring because I had
I'm
the
sorry.
hamstring thing, but I have had a similar elbow thing for, like, a bicep tendonitis, which is likely a digit one of the forearm rotation muscles, and I actually think it has to do with typing over
Fingers.
and over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you ever have that kinda sneaking up on you, just as a key thing, I've been just, like, changing the position of my elbow. Which allows it to not, like, if my elbow is low, it has to actually work more, and then I've been doing biceps, and that's been helping.
Good to know.
Yes.
My father-in-law gave me his guitar, and I think how I'm sitting playing it and just my form wasn't great, like, I think it came from that,
Uh-huh.
and 'cause, when I played golf last week, I could be picking up 45-pound dumbbells at the gym, no
Yeah.
problem, but
Yeah.
gripping the club, I felt it
Yeah.
run all up through here, and it was
Yeah.
and I don't know if I'm sure a tennis racket would do the same thing, but it was a good example of you have to deal with a setback, but then
Mhm.
I was really upset because I was progressing. At that point in my
Mm.
journey, I was starting to see like this was March, so, 2 months after completing the program, and I was like, I'm
Yeah.
on a roll right now.
Yeah. Yeah. It
Starting
was
to see
bad.
physical changes, and then I just what I was really into, like, I couldn't do,
Mhm.
and then it hurt even more to kind of overdo it and then be sort of sore for several days,
Yes.
uh, but I figured it out.
Yeah.
Figured out how to manage it.
I think that is interestingly, that's also something that I find I've definitely had clients who've gone through the 12-week program, and then as they're getting towards the end, They're like have a lot of ambition to really keep the ball rolling. And then as part of that ambition, sometimes whether it's part of working out or it's just life doing life, something will happen
Yeah.
that will set them back. And I think with this, it's really helpful to realize that there's multiple reasons why your body is responding the way that it is. Like food is one of them, movement is another, sleep is another, hydration is another. And so even when one of our tools might not be as available anymore, we still have the other tools that we can lean on. And I think that that's a really beautiful part. And just remembering that if our body is going to put on a pound of fat, it requires about 3,500 additional calories, which generally isn't going to happen in one meal. But it
Yeah.
might happen over a weekend if you're drinking a lot of booze and like eating Pizza Hut or whatever it looks like. And things like tendinitis, it's like tendinitis really requires collagen for healing. So anything that is tendon related, having collagen supplementation is going to be really healing. And then resting it, which is the hardest thing to do,
Yeah.
obviously, with these guys. But just kind of having that awareness to go, okay, if this isn't there, like I love that you moved to a lower body. Funny that you were like, I'm just going to go all the way in lower body and then be really sore. So we
Yeah.
learn, but I love that too because if we are like one of my past lives was Pilates for rehabilitation for injuries. And so what was really cool is that when someone would have an injury, whether it was an arm, a leg, torso, whatever, and they weren't able to really move that, if we moved the other limbs, it would still signal the hormones to support the muscle maintenance on the arm or the leg that was injured. And then what was also very cool is if this guy's injured, work out this one, and the body will essentially relay a type of information to the other side. So it's like there's so many. I think this is where awareness again comes in, right? Because our brain will say, oh, if I can't do it the same way, then I'm not going to make progress. But our body is so smart. And there's multiple different pathways to maintain, and then multiple seasons where it's not time for gains. You know,
Right.
it's time for stabilization or recovery, and that's just as important as when we push hard, you know?
And I wish I had leaned on the community a little bit more. I thought about it a few times to just say, like, "Has anyone dealt with this, and
Mhm.
what did you do to balance?" Because really all I knew was, like, don't do it. Just you
Mm,
and, I wake up, and that's when it's the worst is because I haven't been moving.
right.
But I was really nervous that, well, if I just continue with the programmed exercises, but I just don't do it on my left arm, because at that time too, so much of it was arms,
Uh-huh, right, yeah.
push-ups or lifting of some type. And I didn't want to be, lopsided. So in my head, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna progress really fast, and suddenly I'm gonna be like huge right arm, small left arm, which I should have tapped into the community a little bit more. But that's what's great is that it's there, and when you
Mm.
read through some of the posts that are in there, there's so much feedback, and just I see a lot of comfort with people being able to just ask questions like that and not feel like it's a bad question,
Yeah.
but then they get good answers. So, yeah, that was gonna be my question to the community was how do I not overdo this? And then
Mm.
I did anyway. I knew what I needed to do, but I focused on abs a lot at that time. And
I think it shows in your progress photos, by the
yeah,
way.
it did. But now I'm at a place where like I can't let go of that either. And so I'm
Mm,
doing, just a little bit extra on those days too. And sometimes I don't because 'cause I'm just not feeling it. Sometimes I do, but, I think the motivation is as high as it's ever been, and I don't see that going away, knock on
mm,
wood, barring some type of other setback, and that's
yeah,
really what is different between, working in with the Green Door Life and anything else I've tried is that I'm here. I'm here for the long run now because
yeah,
I've seen it
yeah,
work. I know it works. And there's a group of people that are there that can speak to the changes that they've had, but also help if something happens and you just, you need to ask a question.
yes, totally. And I love that you're pointing to that too, because some people use our community chat in the training tree, which is our ongoing virtual and app-based fitness. And some people really use the community chat a lot. And I'm so grateful when they do because everyone learns from it. Just hearing you share that. And, sometimes we can give really specific answers. And then oftentimes, we had a gal that perhaps she either strained or she had a partial tear of her hamstring. And I was like, I cannot give you ethical feedback unless I actually see what your body is doing,
Right.
or if you have some sort of scan. Yeah. But in the cases like tennis elbow, there are so many modalities that help it. Like have you ever heard of dry needling?
Mm-mm.
So, dry needling is one modality for any sort of injury, especially tendon and muscle. Sometimes nerve, when we have like a pain that's happening from a nerve junction, also. So, dry needling is essentially this is my best explanation. If you are a dry needler out there and you're listening to it, I'm sorry if I'm botching this, but this is how it makes sense to me. So, it is in the lineage, essentially, of acupuncture needles, but instead of you just sticking a needle in, they innervate the tissue and move it around. And the moving it around is there to signal a release of the muscle or tendon juncture from the inside of the tissue. So it's almost like if there was like a little bundle, the needle would come in and kind of innervate it and signal a release from the inside. Not always the most comfortable, kind of an interesting feeling. I've had 100 needles in my body at one time. It's been wild. And there is a man that I go to see specifically in San Francisco whenever I'm there. And then there's also practitioners here. Usually they will put electrostimulus on it. So if we have like an issue like this with the tennis elbow, usually the bicep or one of the other muscles is underactive. So what it does is it helps this muscle to increase its activity while releasing the tension on the overactive one. So if you have someone like if that happens again, or if you find that it's kind of coming up, I would look for someone that does dry needling with electrostim. It's very effective.
Absolutely will. I still feel it a little bit, but it's not like I couldn't hold a cup of coffee for a
Ooh.
while.
Yeah, I've
It's
been there.
rough. Yeah.
Uh-huh. It's super rough. This I was having a hard time holding this for a
Yeah.
while. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You just take that kind of stuff for granted too. I broke both arms as a kid. Left arm twice, right arm no, right yeah. Left arm twice, right arm once, and you just opening a water bottle, just doing normal things.
My gosh,
And
yeah.
so, this case wasn't like I'm in a cast or having surgery, but it still felt like a blow because I'm like, I was on such a roll, and
Mm.
I'm really on this path, and so, the music to the montage, the needle skipped, but
Uh-huh.
then, I figured it out. I got a new song going, and I'm like, I'm still good. I'm still going.
Yeah.
So that's what I feel really prepared about, and that's just again like what my biggest takeaway was. I'm in it to win it, for lack of a
Mhm.
better term. I just
Yeah.
the educational aspect of it is what'll keep me coming back and me advocating for others too.
Mm. I love that. Yeah. I mean, I that's what I personally wanted, when I started to understand like nutrition science and with my mentor who was Dr. Joe Klimzeski. When I started to learn what he was sharing, I was like, he's breaking down all of the previous nutrition education I had and actually making it specific for people. And I was like, well, that's very different than what we're told in other areas. And then
Right.
really understanding what's happening underneath the hood. And I think so many of us are just told eat more protein and, have more fiber, but we really don't understand the mechanics of any of it or when that's a good idea and when maybe it's not a good idea anymore. And what I love so much about nutrition education and the science of macronutrients and then micronutrients is that depending on how you want to feel in your body, it's just like toggling levers. Like I want more energy over here and I want my muscles to grow. I'm going to increase my protein and carbs. I want to, improve my vitamin absorption and hormonal regulation and all these things. I'm going to move fat up a little bit. I want to feel more full. I'm going to move fat up a little bit. So it's like you can just kind of tinker around and start creating your own blueprint, which it sounds like you're already doing just with that initial structure, which is the point.
Yeah, and I would be not prepared at all to do that. Like, based on what I had done previously, there was no that wasn't in the conversation at all.
Yeah.
And so, I will have questions, and I know where to go in the
Yeah.
future for that.
Yeah.
But the better feeling overall is so motivating.
Mm,
You come
oh,
away feeling better, and then, like, because like, I physically felt better, and then the physical changes started becoming more apparent to me. Because in the mirror, it was slow. Someone
mhm.
did have to point it out to me, like my coach would, and then I started to see it more and more, and then it all just really clicked
Yeah.
at one point. And so you learn a lot about your community around you too in that process, which,
Yes.
my friend Mark, who referred me to you, prepared me for. You're gonna see reactions from people
Mm,
that are good, bad, and neutral, maybe. And it was just really helpful to know that going into it.
mm. Yeah, what were your experiences with reactions?
So yeah, obviously the positive ones, and it's interesting you brought up ego before, because I was very concerned that if I started seeing positive progress, like, I needed to see that in order to get really invested.
Mm,
And I was afraid that, like, my ego would take over. And so
mm,
part of the journey was like a breaking down of my mind, and kind of preconceived notions, and just where I was, because while my confidence was going up, and I guess my weight, my physique was improving, I didn't get all like, "Look at me." Like, I
mhm,
was kind of afraid that I would. And so I'm not gonna go into a social setting and be like, "Hey, look at me, everyone." I don't wanna be like that. But there are people who kind of comment, and then to me, they're identifying themselves as like, "I try to pay attention to my health and fitness too. You look great,"
mhm.
or like, "What have you been doing?" Right? So, like,
Yeah.
the really positive comments and experiences just based around like, you look fit, or you look well,
Uh-huh.
or take it as far as, have you lost weight? And I even struggle to answer, because I don't want to like really pull focus on me, even
Uh-huh.
though they brought it up. Then you get comments like, the majority are like, they're hearing how you do it.
Uh-huh.
So, like, I try to keep it simple, like, oh, just diet and exercise, because I don't
Uh-huh.
really want to explain the like, going into tracking and the caloric deficit, because if you don't have anything to compare it to, like, how many calories a day are you eating, it's hard for people to really understand.
Mhm.
But so many people relate it to their experience, and I'd get like, "Oh, I could never do that." And
Mm.
so it's a compliment, but it's also, I'm kinda hearing like, they're kinda making my situation about them at times.
Yeah.
Like, you're
Yeah.
relating what I did to you. I'll take it. Alright? It's fine.
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
then you get I mean, life's about living, right? You
Mhm.
should eat it if you
Mm.
want to.
Uh-huh.
And that makes me go, "Well, what I wanted to do is this. I wanted to get this improvement. I wanted to better my situation, and you're signaling like you're not supportive of my efforts." Like,
Mm.
because while I wanted to improve my physique and feel better about myself, my cholesterol was high, and my
Uh-huh.
doctor's saying, "We gotta do something about this. 2 years in a
Yeah.
row, we gotta make some changes." And so I think I saw my doctor the day I met you. I had a
Mhm.
physical, I had a blood test, and I was really conscious of, like, what was I eating the day before, going up into it, and then I had to fast all day. It was my birthday, and I had like a 3 PM blood test, so I had to fast, like, all day. It wasn't a great birthday, but, the
Yeah.
results came back high, and so I met with my doctor again, and I'd been in the program for, I think, 2 weeks at that point. I'm like, "I'm doing this. I'm on a
Uh-huh.
whole food diet. It's very structured, it's very monitored." And she's like,
Uh-huh.
"Call me back in 6 months, and let's do another
Uh-huh.
blood test," which I
Yeah.
just did a couple weeks ago. Everything is in the green now.
Uh-huh.
Everything's normal, everything's good. And that whole time too, Coach Nate's saying, "I guarantee," all but guarantee, but he was very confident that, you lose
Uh-huh.
some inches off your waistline, you lose some weight, you're either gonna realize you've got, like, an issue that's not related to your weight, or
Uh-huh.
it is, right? And that was my concern. Like, is this chronic? Is this something that I'm gonna have to take medication for, or is this something that I can help?
Yes.
and it was something that can help. And so much of the program too was, the slow release of blood sugar, the balanced nutrition, eating on the right schedule was, you know, diabetes is a concern of mine too, right? It
Mhm.
can be in your genetics or it can just happen, and I don't want to do that. So
Yeah.
there's so many red flags with everything in life. And so while people try to relate their experience to mine and say like maybe you shouldn't say no to grandma's yams at Thanksgiving or whatever it is. Like,
Mhm.
just do what you're doing. I'm like, I have to rediscipline myself in order to improve
Mm.
my situation, and it would be cool if you were just like, "Well, good luck," you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting, I love human psychology, but it's interesting the projection, right, that we'll experience with people because someone saying about yams or whatever, that's that's their desire,
Right,
not your desire. And what I wanna clarify also for everyone who might be listening is that it's not that you can't have things, you just know the impact. And then you get to choose based on your awareness of what the impact is. So we're no longer like you and I, if we went to a restaurant and we were sitting down looking at the menu, we are no longer in an illusion of what we are putting into our bodies. So now that we know what we're putting into our bodies and we know how it's going to make us feel, we start choosing differently. And the longer that that goes on, the longer our taste buds change, our body changes, the kinds of foods our body likes to digest changes. And there's been so many times where I may have been at some sort of event, whatever, and I did not say no to something that I really was like, I don't think that's going to feel super good. And sure enough, my body was very upset with me for a few days. So I think it's interesting to be able to navigate, especially with things like alcohol, like not drinking.
right.
You're at an event and you're not drinking. Now, I don't nobody cares if I'm drinking or not, and I haven't had a drink in over 2.5 years. So, it's like I go to parties, no one cares.
Mhm.
No one cares. And I find it really interesting where the people that will say things, "Oh, you should just live your life," or, "Oh, you should just" that's them caring about them living their life. It's not them
Right.
caring about you, or else they would go, "Hey, man, that's cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, you should do you. That's great." So they're saying it, or the people who already exclude themselves and say, "Oh, I could never do that." They're already branding themselves as someone who doesn't have that capacity, which I find is so interesting.
It is, and if you can get yourself to the point of opening up to that person when you're talking about it, because I didn't see some people between November when I started and now, and I look very different.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
when they comment, I can't just be like, "Oh, no, no, I didn't do anything. I've always looked like this."
I woke up
It's
like this today.
just, the pat on the back is really kind of what you expect, especially out of a friend or a longtime acquaintance. And
Yeah.
getting prepared for that I think is important. It was something I messaged Mark about. I was like, thank you for just telling me that, because you go into this and it is harder. Like,
Uh-huh,
your life is harder.
uh-huh.
It's all in the name of progress. And I think one of the recurring comments I saw, I think, in your co-founder,
Lisa.
Lisa's uh, Lisa's writings, "Discomfort is the edge of progress," I think is what she said.
It can be, yeah, for sure. Mhm.
And so, it was just one of those areas of discomfort, whether I'm
Yeah,
hungry because I'm just eating less,
right.
or I'm sore, or the social parts of it. The social parts of
Mm.
it are very important. And so I was in the map of the coursework was hitting me every single week. Every week that I
Uh-huh.
would do one of the courses, a situation would occur that was relevant to it. Again, a lot of it was around the holidays, and alcohol was the big one. So it was very intentional, and it was very supportive in that, like, you're gonna hit this, you're gonna see this, and that's why
Mhm.
leaving it, you're like, what do I do? But I had the tools that I needed to keep the party going, for lack of a
Y
better term.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, and alcohol being the big one that people don't. It's the hardest to explain, and it's the one I don't want to explain. But I would just say,
Mm.
I just count this as 30 grams of carbohydrates, and I'm
Uh-huh.
just trying to stick to this.
Yeah.
But, where did it bite me? I'm eating less.
Huh?
I should be drinking less. So even if I plan for like 2 drinks, there's not enough food in my body to really absorb that. And so
Yeah.
I got real sick one day because I just didn't
Mhm.
have enough food in my system to really make up for what I drank. And so, like I said earlier, I'm very hands-on. I'm not gonna do that again. I'm not gonna make
Yeah.
that mistake again. I know.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's the embodied learning.
Mhm.
Like,
Like
you
a
go
little,
through the process.
exposure therapy, like I it
Yeah.
sucked, but,
Yeah.
um,
Absolutely.
now I know. And so over time, I just learned and continue to learn, like, how does my body react to things, and
Mhm.
keeping the awareness up and tuned in and dialed in is just a big part of
Yes.
continuing to progress.
Yeah. And it does get to be a copy and paste for other areas of our lives.
Mhm.
The awareness, and it's like if and I think for people, just in terms of the mind, the first, like, we say that we build habits in 21 days. I don't actually believe that. That hasn't been my experience of a 21-day habit building system. I think that it gets easier after 21 days. Something like tracking or implementing new behavior patterns and having a new schedule or a new system. I think after the first 3 weeks that it starts to get easier.
Mhm.
And then it starts to get ingrained, like, I imagine, like, you can go out to eat, not necessarily track, and go, "I know approximately what's in that."
Yeah.
Right, so the initial work or the initial experience and awareness and depth of intention is now just a part of your internal ecosystem. Like, you don't have
Right.
to try anymore, and when I stopped drinking, you can use this if you want in any way, I wouldn't even tell people why. I would just go, "I just don't feel like it."
Yeah, I mean, you don't need to put a ton of attention and focus on it.
Not at all. Not at all. And what I found is that unless, especially if I think way back to my journey, because when I went through my own physical processes at the beginning of my whole experience, which, by the way, I was roommates with Nate at this time, and we were meal prepping in our community kitchen. Those that were seeing the change in my body became my clients within 2 months because they knew that that's the world that I was in. They were
Yeah.
like, wait a second, you've been a personal trainer for 10 years and now what happened? Like, what just shifted here? But when it's I think it's really cool that you're sharing this because we don't have that at the end of the course.
Mhm.
That conversation about how people are going to view you and how their view has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
And where we search for acknowledgement and we may not even know that we're looking for it. And then when we don't receive it, we're like, "Oh, man, that sucks." You know?
Yeah, it can be like that, and then other times it's not. You just first time around, you're maybe expecting some comments, and then, whether I get them or not, that's where the battle with the ego comes in. Am I upset that no one commented?
Yeah.
There were times when I was, yeah, like, it's very, "I haven't seen you in a while, and this doesn't."
Right.
But, I think people can be uncomfortable too. They don't wanna, maybe draw attention to it from their perspective, and so I can,
Yeah.
like, respect that. On alcohol, I was at a couple of parties, and I brought Liquid Death,
Mhm.
which, as far as I understand, was specifically designed to be this sort of, like, social placebo
Uh-huh.
effect of just you're holding a can. It's kind of like holding a drink.
Mhm.
But I drank 4 of these, like, 19-ounce cans of water at a party, and I'm like, "Why?"
Mhm.
I'm in the bathroom, like, all night. I'm like, "Why did I just drink 80 ounces of water?" That's where my focus went, was like, "What am I why do that? Like, whose
Mhm.
expectation am I meeting?" I would've been
Mhm.
fine with 1, right? I'm
Yeah.
not dying of thirst or anything, and
Yeah.
nobody here cares. So there's a
Right.
lot that comes with it that's just you, you need time to just go through it and understand, and so I get to reflect on some of that a lot and just laugh at myself, or say, "I'm not gonna treat it that way this time because I'm not gonna make it the half hour home without having to stop to
Right.
use a restroom because I just drank more water than anyone should in a 2-hour span." But that it allowed me to look at a different behavior and go, that isn't necessarily covered in Awaken Your Nutrition, but Awaken Your Nutrition allowed me to start thinking that way on a much
Yeah.
wider scale. So, like, when I say diet and exercise, I'm not doing any
Mhm.
justice to, like, what I actually learned because I'm really just avoiding a long conversation at that point,
Yes.
but
Yes.
there was so much to take from it, and the coaching, the
Mm.
attention. Nate was so amazing to
Mm.
really put a focus on how are you feeling? Are you sore? How are you feeling? Are you hungry? How's your head?
Mhm.
And I think that was the part that kinda came around last was like, just you gotta get a little resolve, you got a little fortitude here, and you'll be fine. You'll be fine. And so, you come out of it, you reach your goals, that's the cherry on top. And then
Mhm.
you kind of stick to that. I've at least been able to stick to that and cling to it. And I'm just in just a much better place as a result. And,
Mm.
excited to just see where it goes next.
I know, I'm so excited for you. That's my last question here. When you think about the trajectory that you're on, are you focusing on muscle building or, like, from the physicality standpoint?
Well, I'm climbing in calories right now, so I'm working to maintenance long term. So that's my main focus right now. Muscle building versus muscle maintaining or just
Mhm.
keeping a physique. I want the look. Obviously, I think I'm very happy with how I'm looking, but just the utility of it. I have all these logs in my backyard, and that's not a thing I anticipate dealing with throughout my life, but you lift heavy objects, you walk long distances. Sometimes you just need that availability and for the long term of it, for my body to be able to at least handle, I think somewhere between maintaining and building,
Uh-huh.
but
Yeah.
not overdoing it, right? Like
Yeah.
I watched a ton of that show, American Ninja Warrior, and the
Uh-huh.
guys who go the farthest are the climbers. The guys who
Yeah.
have the like statue physique. You can tell
Yes.
those arms are weighing them down. Like, they're getting toward the end of the course, and they're not
Yeah.
able to do it, and so that's I
Yeah.
think about that a lot, that, like, I want the utility out of
Uh-huh.
this, and I don't need
Love
the
that.
full aesthetic that
Yeah.
maybe looks like this. So, I think where I'm going with it is where I wanna reach that final weight. I wanna reach those final like, what's my pants size gonna be?
Mm.
Because I used to have a tub of clothes that was, "These are too small," but I'm holding out hope that I can put them back on, and now those are too big,
Right. I was gonna say.
which
I was like, "Welcome to the multiple size
yeah.
season."
Yeah, so I'm lucky to have the extra closet space to
Uh,
be able to put those away in. And so, yeah, finding my place, my size, and then just sticking
mm.
with it because I do really enjoy the routine. I think the mental calm that comes from being physical, because it allows me to be active too. I've got 4 dogs, and we walk them in pairs. So,
Yes.
there's a lot of walking involved, but I enjoy paddleboarding around our lake or just at any given point, I wanna be able to have the energy. And I guess that's the big thing too. It's just I just feel better. I can sleep when I want to sleep, but I'm not
Mhm.
dragging through the day. And a
Mhm.
lot of that is I'm eating well.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh, so many good things. I love, love, love hearing about the whole experience. It was very cool just to hear about the before you started, the initial trajectory, and just how it's continuing to unfold, and how your awareness is just kind of wrapping throughout all of these experiences. And I'm just very grateful that you said yes to doing this today.
I mean, thank you for the invite because this whole time I've been like, I'm starting to see change. I'm starting to see progress. But you're running a business. You got a bunch of clients. And so when you asked, I was like, I don't, does everybody get
Does everyone
this
get an
this
invite?
invite? And if so, great, happy to do it. If not, thank you because it was a compliment
Yeah.
in asking me. But I think a lot of people want to share their experience when they do something, and I don't think they get that opportunity. Social
Mm,
media is one of those things that I look at it and I'm like, everybody's sharing their experience
yeah.
in here, and it's noisy. And so
Yeah.
I've removed myself from that world, but you just have that urge, right? And so I'm not, I filled out the questionnaire after I was done with Nate, and it was great. But to be one on one with the co-founder
Yeah,
who's
yeah.
asking me these questions is a big compliment to me. So I appreciate it.
Oh,
Not just accepting me in and, letting me work with the program, but, like, you're asking me questions about my experience? I didn't expect that
Wow.
at all.
I love that. Well, I mean, yes. It's like this thing was so funny. This thing was designed like almost 10 years ago, and I've lived the design with myself and with clients, and now we have coaches, and it's always so cool to hear how people go through the experience. And I think it was also, I mean, it was just kind of happenstance because we were having like a administrative blip in the back end, and then, Nate shared with me your progress photos. I was like, "Wait, what? Hold on a second. This is like a different person.
Yeah.
This is awesome. So great." Yeah, so and I know how much has to change in order for that to happen. Like, I know how much our whole life changes.
It does, and when I talk to people about it, I talk about this montage because there was a good 6, 8 weeks where it's like the dark of winter. There's really
Mhm.
nothing to look forward to.
Yeah.
I wake up in the dark, I get home in the dark, and I don't know, it was like a cocoon, like a metamorphosis, and it just happened. I guess it's very forgettable time, and it wasn't. I mean, I look back at, like, I did all that work, and I did all that meal prep, and it was where all my attention and focus went, but at the same time, it worked. I liked it coming out of
Mhm.
it, and, now I have this habit, I guess, for lack of a better term, to just continue with, a healthy habit, because, while you need to keep physically active, like, a lot of it was tied into the mind, and I get a lot of thinking done when I'm struggling to, like, finish a set or something. I'm just being aware. Again, that was the biggest part for me, is why, the why that's coming with it, what thinking about it on a deeper level, not just being right
Mm.
there and being like, I want to be done with this. I want to be
Yeah.
done. No, it was,
Right.
sit in that for a while.
Yeah. It's awesome. And all right, Ed, thank you so, so much. This is so
Yeah.
good.
Thank you.
And for those of you who are listening, thank you for staying with us this long. If you want to experience the journey that Ed just shared with you guys so eloquently, we will have links in booking application calls, just like you started, which is so amazing. I love that we had the application call together because sometimes it's with others. So this is special. So, yeah, I just so appreciate you. Thank you, everyone who listened, and we'll see you next time.